The Cuban government rejected the United States military deployment in the Caribbean Sea, assuring the action represents a threat to the region. Amid a corruption scandal that has significantly affected its image, Javier Milei's government has admitted to overpaying for medicines purchased by the National Disability Agency. And the United Nations warned that Palestinian children continue to be deprived of their right to education since the escalation of the Israeli aggression in October 2023. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR Studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The Cuban government rejected, through a communique, the United States military deployment in the Caribbean Sea, assuring the action represents a threat to the region. The statement begins, "This dangerous action represents a serious threat and an aggressive show of force against the sovereignty and self-determination of the peoples of Latin America and the Caribbean." It continues, "The U.S. claims associating the legitimate government of Venezuela and its president, Nicolás Maduro, with criminal organizations involved in illegal drug trafficking is an absurd pretext that is unfounded." The statement declares that the government of the United States resorts to lies once again to justify violence and plunder. The United States is the largest market of narcotic drugs in the region and possibly the world. It concludes, "No one with minimum common sense and honesty believes that the quantity of the troops of the United States has sought to deploy in this peaceful area of the world is the appropriate manner to fight organized crime, illicit drug trafficking, or irregular migration flows." In this context, Venezuela appreciates Cuba's solidarity and its statement against the United States military deployment in the Caribbean Sea, a situation considered a threat to the region. On behalf of Venezuela, Foreign Minister Ivan Gil emphasized, "We express our sincere gratitude to the sister Republic of Cuba for its insightful analysis of the inconsistency of the United States in its supposed war on drugs. Despite its proclamations, the United States continues to be the largest market for narcotics in the region and possibly in the world, and according to a 2025 Global Drug Report issued by the United Nations Office on Drug and Crimes," and adds the following, "We would like to express our gratitude for the call to respect the peace zone of Latin America and the Caribbean amid the threats looming over our nation, our people, and our Bolivarian government under the same criminalizing narratives as always." In Venezuela, President Nicolás Maduro accused the United States of violating the 1967 Tlatelolco Treaty, which declared Latin America and the Caribbean nuclear weapons-free zones. The head of state warned the international community about Washington's aggressive actions and said they undermine the peace of Latin America and the Caribbean. Maduro also affirmed that Venezuela will not accept any supremacist attitude from anyone, nor any interference in the region. The head of state praised the international solidarity with Venezuela and highlighted in contrast the isolation of the U.S. government's aggressive policy.
Que aunque no está escrito en la Carta de Naciones Unidas, Venezuela, aquí en Sudamérica, territorio de paz.
Venezuela, here in South America, a land of peace, and with great goals with Africa, Europe, Eurasia, Asia, etc. Venezuela is a country admired in the world, loved in the world, not only by governments, which are showing an impressive example of solidarity toward us, especially now after Venezuela was threatened with a nuclear submarine, violating the Tlatelolco Treaty, which prohibits the mobilization, use, and manufacture of nuclear weapons in Latin America and the Caribbean. Venezuela is receiving an impressive example of global solidarity.
In this context, the Venezuelan Ministry of Defense announced Thursday the results of the operation of the Bolivarian National Armed Forces in response to U.S. aggressions against the country. According to Defense Minister Vladimir Padrino Lopez, the people's response to President Nicolás Maduro's call to arms was a success amid the Washington's narrative intended to make people believe that the Bolivarian nation is governed by narco-state. Padrino Lopez also affirmed that Venezuela is firm and ready to face any aggression. And we stay in Venezuela, where the exports to Colombia grew 92% between 2022 and 2025. The information was provided by the Colombian government agency ProColombia, which also announced that exports from Colombia to Venezuela grew up to 300%. The Bolivarian nation's exports include iron and steel casting, fertilizers, aluminum, fuels, oils, and organic chemicals amid a process of the diversification that intends to include other goods in its international trade. ProColombia Director Carlos Luna highlighted the need for the Colombian business sector to visit Venezuela to assess its industrial capacity, identify new business opportunities, and strengthen bilateral alliances. On Wednesday, the governments of Mexico and Brazil strengthened bilateral cooperation as part of the action plan to mitigate the impact of tariffs imposed by the United States. During his official visit to Mexico, Brazilian Vice President Geraldo Alckmin celebrated the signing of two bilateral cooperation agreements which are expected to generate new opportunities in several economic sectors. Among the agreements signed were a declaration of intent on biofuels and a deal with the Mexican Ministry of Economy to improve the effectiveness of relations between Mexican and Brazilian companies. Business leaders and authorities of both nations agreed that the current international situation, characterized by trade tensions with the U.S., provides an exceptional opportunity to boost bilateral ties. And now we have a short break coming up. But first, remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Amid a corruption scandal that has significantly affected its image, Javier Milei's government has admitted to overpaying for medicines purchased by the National Disability Agency. These are the first results from the audit that the executive carried out over the National Disability Agency, or ANDES, after removing its former chief, Diego Españolo, for leaked accusations denouncing overpricing and bribes. According to new data, payments made by the agency for one drug in particular were 27% higher than what the Ministry of Health usually pays for it. Despite the fact that the government has in this way admitted to the overpayment, Milei continued to insist on merely stating that everything that was said about the case were lies. Amid the controversy, the authorities are investigating the Swiss-Argentina pharmaceutical company due to reports that contracts have multiplied recently. The investigations reveal audios attributed to the director of the pharmacy, where bribes from officials, among them the president's sister Karina Milei, are mentioned. As the probe continues, the justice system has ordered raids into the homes of owners of the company. In other news, former Puerto Rico Governor Wanda Vázquez-Garcet pled guilty to a campaign finance violation in a federal case at a U.S. District Court. Vázquez, who took office in 2019, acknowledged on Wednesday her responsibility for accepting campaign contributions from abroad for her 2020 political campaign. She was arrested in August 2022 and initially accused of participating in a bribery scheme during her term. After 3 years of detention, Vázquez defense attorney Alex Spiro, who is directly linked to U.S. President Donald Trump, took over the case and secured a reduction in charges through a plea agreement with the U.S. Attorney's Office. And the politician is scheduled to be sentenced on October 15th and has become Puerto Rico's first former governor to pledge guilty to a crime. And And in the United States, the director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, Susan Monares, has been fired after less than a month in the job. The White House informed on Wednesday that Monares' contract has been terminated after she refused to resign amid pressure by the nation's top health official, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Her lawyers responded with a statement saying Monares was being targeted for protecting the public over serving a political agenda. Furthermore, they stressed the decision evidences the systematic dismantling of public health institutions, the silencing of experts, and the dangerous politicization of science. Her departure coincided with the resignation of the least 4 top CDC officials amid tensions over vaccine policies and public health directives. Also in the United States, a memorial has been set up outside a Catholic church in Minneapolis in the state of Minnesota for the victims of a shooting that killed 2 children and wounded 17 people on Wednesday. The shooting at Annunciation Church, which also houses a school, was perpetrated by 23-year-old Robin Westman, who approached the outside of the church building and fired inside towards the children sitting in pews, taking his own life shortly afterwards. In the aftermath, 2 white crosses have been placed at a growing memorial outside the church, covered in handwritten notes, while closed by memorials showcase flowers, wreaths, candles, and teddy bears honoring the children. This was the 44th school shooting in the U.S. in this year, and the 4th deadly shooting that the city has recently experienced in 24 hours.
We've all felt the pain from the families, and we know that as a collective Minneapolis community, what we need to be doing right now is wrapping our arms around them. And what I feel right now is a city that stands up for one another, that does the right thing by their community, and that recognizes that right now, while thoughts and prayers are great, they are not adequate. These children were literally praying at this moment.
In this context, let's look at the most recent statistics on gun violence in the United States, with thousands of fatalities, injuries, and incidents involving minors in the last year. To date, 9,800 homicides and murders related to firearms have been recorded. The total number of injuries reached 17,906, including both injuries from assaults and unintentional incidents. There were also 286 mass shootings, in which 157 children died and 337 were injured. On the other hand, 958 suspects died and 584 were injured in confrontations with the police. These data, compiled from multiple sources, reflect both the seriousness of the problem and the difficulty to address it in a country where the debate on gun control remains polarized. And we have a second show break coming up. Before, we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage, and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final show break. Don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. The United Nations warned that Gazan children continue to be deprived of their right to education since the escalation of the Israeli aggression in October 2023. The Israeli genocidal operation in the Palestinian enclave has caused the destruction of Gaza's education and cultural infrastructure, which the international community and experts have been condemning for months as war crimes. In this context, the United Nations warned that Gazan children will miss out on school for the 3rd consecutive year. The organization reiterated the need to reopen schools in Gaza, given the threat this poses to the education and future of an entire generation in the coastal enclave. Also in Palestine, the Israeli army intensified its operations around Gaza City, heavily bombing the area overnight on Wednesday. As part of its genocidal advances in the region, the Tel Aviv regime forces are seeking to take the capital of the Palestinian enclave, with troops deployed in the city outskirts. In this context, the Gazan Civil Defense Agency reported that Zionist entity strikes killed at least 38 people on Wednesday alone, including 16 in Gaza City. The military advances in the enclave occurred while Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's administration faces growing internal and foreign pressure to end the onslaught in the Gaza Strip, as a ceasefire proposal mediated by Egypt and Qatar remains on the table.
I was in the Zaytun school and quadcopters were flying above us from 1 o'clock a.m. until 8 o'clock a.m. There were explosions all night. I was injured, my husband was injured by shrapnel, and my son was also wounded in the head. Thank God we survived, but there were martyrs. I have no shelter, and I'm sitting at the door of the Baptist Hospital, Al-Ali Hospital, just waiting for God's mercy. I appeal to countries to stand with us and help us. Where can we go? We are steadfast here in Gaza City, and I have not left since the war began.
Precisely in this regard, on Thursday, the foreign ministers of Qatar and Egypt informed they are still waiting for Israel's response to the 60-day Gaza ceasefire proposal that has already been accepted by the Palestinian resistance movement Hamas.
Today, we reached a stage that we are waiting for a response from the Israeli side. After extensive efforts in the past days to reach a common ground to reach a deal to release hostages and detainees, as well as prisoners exchange, leading to a ceasefire to end war. However, unfortunately, these efforts have been met by more disregard. Despite all the negative opinions and lack of the positive response from the Israeli side towards our sincere efforts and the obstinacy of their stance, we will continue. We will keep on with our efforts and pressuring and contacting with the concerned regional and international parties to put complete pressure on the Israeli side till they accept this deal that is based according to the proposal of the U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff.
Faculty and students from the Sana'a University in Yemen mobilized on Thursday in solidarity with the Palestinian people in the face of the ongoing genocide perpetrated by Israel. The demonstration was attended by the deans of the faculties, professors, employees, and university rector Mohammed Al-Bughati. Carrying Palestinian flags and banners, the participants demanded an end to the Israeli occupation in the Gaza Strip. In addition, the university community condemned world powers that support Israel for being complicit in the Palestinian genocide. In this context, demonstrators praised the support of the Yemeni forces to the struggle, urging them to remain vigilant of threats to the lives of Palestinians in the occupied territories. In Pakistan, monsoon rains affected the eastern province of Punjab, forcing more than 200,000 residents to evacuate due to flooding. Local authorities report rising water levels in the Chenab, Rabi, and Stelja rivers, so rescue teams continue to evacuate villages that are difficult to access. They also reported that to prevent the collapse of water facilities, they detonated a sub-dam in Qadirabad to relieve pressure on the Chenab Dam. In this regard, the authorities declared that Pakistan is facing its worst season in decades, as 800 people have died since June due to the floods and landslides.
Thousands of acres of crops were wasted, houses destroyed, and cattle killed. We pleaded to rescuers who went inside the Carter corridor shrine to carry out rescue on the outside tomorrow. They carried out no rescue outside the shrine. Our public kept on getting ridiculed. Our children had no milk or anything to eat or drink. Our village is close to Carter. It has been badly affected. Many homes were washed away and many people lost their cattle. Roads were also ruined. People were given no boat in the area. People are confined to their houses, and no facility was provided here.
In other news, Vietnam held the opening of the exhibition 80 Years of Independence, Freedom and Happiness at the National Exhibition Center of the Dong An Commune in the city of Hanoi. Vietnamese Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh emphasized in his speech that this event not only honors history but also spreads Vietnamese patriotism and pride. He also pointed out that the construction of centers like this one promotes innovation, integration and sustainable development in the country, being a sign of progress. The exhibition has more than 230 stands and will remain open until September 5th, allowing this region to become an area that attracts political, economic, cultural and artistic events of a national and international nature. And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram and TikTok as well. For Telesur English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.